for almost 50 years. This semester, she is teaching a course titled Controlling Processes. Today, I discuss with her the themes of this course and how some of these themes may be applied to elections, including the midterm elections coming up this November. Professor Nader, well, thank you so much for coming out to talk to Caltv today.
Thank you.
So can you tell me a little bit about some of the themes in your Controlling Processes class?
Controlling Processes was a course I invented because I felt the students needed to understand the world they lived in better than they did. They needed to connect the dots. And they weren't getting it in many courses. So I thought if I took a course on power, they'd understand power because some people have it and some people don't. But they wouldn't understand control, which is the dynamic component of power. It's how people get power, is through control. They have to write a paper about a controlling process in their life. They pick the topic, and they have to describe how it works.
Can you give me an example?
Yes. Some kids do it on drugs like Ritalin. Either they've been put on Ritalin or their siblings have been put on Ritalin. They want to understand how that has happened, how it's a controlling process, and they get into the whole business of, big pharma and drugs in general and how the young have been drugged. I mean, this is something relatively new. So then they say this has been transformative because it's something they cared about.
You mentioned connecting the dots. Can you expound upon that a little?
Connecting the dots between, for example, when people say we can't afford either medical care or anything like that, I want them to be able to say, well, how come we can afford to spend trillions of dollars on war? Or when they say intercollegiate sports brings in money from where? I want them to be able to ask. And so they begin to notice that intercollegiate sports is using student fees to support intercollegiate sports. That's connecting the dots.
Gotcha.
And so once you start to do that, you look at the world very differently. And you start to think in the way you're supposed to think when you go to college or when you go to public school or whatever. Public school is not about getting jobs.
Yeah.
Certainly not higher education. It should be about having a more fruitful life.
And connecting the dots.
Connecting the dots makes
Why
it
do you
so.
feel like so many higher education is not teaching students to connect the dots?
Because we become a specialist nation. We go to school to become specialists. So the foot doctor doesn't know the foot is connected to the knee, which is connected to the heart, which is connected to the head, or whatever. And now the big problem is how can we have specialties and also have integrative thinking? What better example than Toyota? Somebody referred to the cars as being computers on wheels. They can't even find out now. EPA can't find out why it is that the Toyota accelerates suddenly. They haven't been able to figure that out. Talk about over-specialization.
It's unfortunate, and people's jobs don't end up being as rewarding for them.
Absolutely.
And they're not allowed to, they can't really analyze from it and develop from that either.
That's right.
Let's switch topics a little. In light of this midterm elections that are coming up this November, can you tell me about some of the controlling processes you see in our political sphere or in elections, actually, specifically?
With the new Supreme Court ruling about corporations being persons with the capacity to use whatever money they want to convince you of whatever, that in fact makes it more propagandistic.